Yeah. Now we can also try. So we have a so everybody has a laptop. So this is a computer lab without computer. So the smart boards are there. The people can also remove it up. And look at the system. Other thing is if you want to do that. Earlier there was only one computer and you can 20 computers. So when we combine these tests, we can do something. Yeah, too smart. It could be used as a separate class. So otherwise, things the students can remove the topic. So it can also on-site students who are online. And we can Just completed the lots of pending work. $54 years. 1967. UCSC will be 20 years. 54 years now.
Sementara gimana? Gimana?
No, everybody has. Yes. No, no, there's a few more things like
So 100 of your 600 means amount of it. Or you want to
Oh, posted students.
Yeah, Darwin has looked at them.
Use this and make something very difficult for the country. Very good. I think it's very good. Yeah. Like how much it was costed when we were funded, and then good to know like what we are using. Yeah, madam. These days, they are on the link. So they are using that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the inauguration ceremony of the International Conference on Advances in ICT for Emerging Regions. We have been organizing the ICTer conference annually in a physical environment, but the COVID-19 pandemic compelled us to hold it in an online environment last year. However, with the tremendous efforts put in by the UCSC, we are able to meet physically today and hold the conference for the coming 2 days in a blended platform. Today is also a memorable day for UCSC because we opened 4 new facilities within the premises. We renovated the reception area, opened the new multisensory computer facility, and also the gallery of the Computer Museum of the University of Colombo. And finally, and most importantly, we opened the research facility of the University of Colombo School of Computing. and we gifted it to the future generations of students and researchers. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at these new refurbishments and how UCSC will strive to shine as the global leader in computing. Let's take a look at a short video.
The University of Colombo School of Computing marks the memorable moment of dedicating unique computing facilities to future generations. This will indeed drive UCSC towards innovation, research and development. The reception area of the UCSC is newly renovated to give a spacious, tranquil environment for the visitors. The reception desk lounge area creates a calm atmosphere, and the friendly staff is always ready to provide assistance. Computer Museum Phase 2 is an extension of the Phase 1 of Colombo University Computer Museum, launched in January 2021 in commemoration of 100 years of celebration of the University of Colombo. Phase 2 of the project improves the visibility of the items in the museum as well as their protection. This educational museum of computing at the University of Colombo is now open to the public. The construction of the multi-purpose computer laboratory located on the ground floor began in 2020 in order to strengthen the teaching and learning environment of UCSC. The state-of-the-art laboratory was refurbished by combining the former Master's Lab and the CSC room to cater for the increasing demand for computer resources among undergraduates, master students, as well as students of the short courses. The laboratory will be designed for blended learning environment and can be split into 2 smaller laboratories for parallel sessions. The multi-purpose computer laboratory consists of over 1,000 square feet. The newly established UCSC Research Laboratory is a state-of-the-art facility with interactive research space consisting over 5,500 square feet. The construction of the laboratory began in 2019 under the financial assistance of UCSC Research Allocation and the research grants under the Accelerating Higher Education Expansion and Development Operations Project. The initiative aims to strengthen the existing research and development environment of UCSC by providing conductive research and development. The space will facilitate research groups of UCSC to access new workspaces, study areas, mini library, conference room, discussion room, printing room, and rest areas with a seating capacity of over 100. This marks the remarkable rectitude for UCSC, and the entity will glow as the best computing higher education provider for many years to come.
As you saw, these new facilities that we opened within the UCSC premises will indeed drive this entity towards success. Added to all of these, today is also the day that we commence our annual international conference, ICTer 2021. ICTer is technically co-sponsored by IEEE Sri Lanka section and is a unique opportunity for practitioners to present new research and practical developments in the computer science and information technology domains. All ICTer publications are indexed in IEEE Explore. In addition to technical paper sessions, we also have multiple informative keynote speeches lined up for the coming 2 days. I would like to thank each and every one of you for being present here today. Your presence encourages us during these difficult times that we go through as a nation. Without further ado, I would like to move into the first segment of the inauguration ceremony today. For this, I would like to invite the Director of UCSC, Professor K.P. Hewagamage, to address the gathering. Professor Hewagamage is a phenomenal leader whose guidance has helped UCSC to thrive through difficult time periods, including the pandemic. His guidance has directed us to succeed as an entity. With that, I feel privileged to invite Professor K.P. Hewagamage on stage to speak a few words on behalf of today's ceremony.
Very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the University of Colombo School of Computing and ICTer Organizing Committee, I warmly welcome all of you for the opening ceremony of the UCSC new research facilities for research and development, as well as the inauguration of the 21st International Conference on Advances in ICT for Emerging Regions, ICTer 2021. Especially, I would like to welcome the chief guest of the ceremony, Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, Senior Professor Chandrika N. Vijayaratne, Deans and Directors of the University of Colombo, some of them are participating online, Registrar of the University of Colombo, keynote speakers of the conference, representatives of the industry, sponsors of the conference, all other invitees of the ceremony, authors, paper presenters, participants of the conference, academic, administrative, and other staff of the University of Colombo, and all other participants, including students of UCSC, other faculties, and other universities of other universities. Due to the pandemic situation in the country, we are organizing a ceremony almost after 20 months in this auditorium. We usually invite and like to see a large number of participants in the auditorium when we organize events. However, we believe adhering to the health guidelines in the country is one of our primary responsibility, as well as safety of all participants. Hence, we decided to select a number of for in-person participation and encourage all others to participate online. I humbly request you to understand the situation, and we highly value your in-person or online participation in this ceremony. Please let me say a few words about the new research facilities as well as ICTer conference. Research is the strongest pillar of any higher education institute. Performance of research is the one that takes forward the organization. University of Colombo School of Computing is an important institute in Sri Lanka where computing research has been established. Computing studies was started at the University of Colombo in 1967, and as you know, late Professor Vidyajyoti V.K. Samaranayake was the great personality behind such an initiation. The establishment of the UCSC in 2002 was a part of the institutionalization of the computing research at the University of Colombo. Hence, it is our primary responsibility to take things forward in an innovative way, providing more opportunities for computing research. 3 years ago, UCSC received a special grant of 40 million from funded by the World Bank based on the performance of an innovative project conducted by the Simulation Research Group of the UCSC. The main objective of this project was to take forward the research and development work beyond the research paper publication to the solution development and the commercialization. 25% of the grant, almost 10 million, was allocated for the expansion of the research laboratory, and the capacity, which was around 50, it was not possible to expand the physical space since the allocation was not enough. Hence, we renovated the UCSC Research Lab by increasing the capacity to 100 researchers. UCSC also invested another 10 million in this expansion project. In the future, UCSC Research Lab will never be closed, and it will function 4 hours in all 365 days. When the physical space is not enough, we have to creatively think about how to optimize the space as well as the methodology to expand the capacity. The multipurpose computer lab, which was almost 60 students, and it is based on the concept of bring a device. At the same time, students could join the lab activities remotely. COVID-19 pandemic affected almost all the activities badly. We consider it is a challenge in the new normal. At the beginning of this year, the Computer Museum of the University of Colombo was declared open by the Vice Chancellor to mark the 100 years anniversary of the University of Colombo. We have now completed the phase 2 of the project, and we hope we can open the Computer Museum to the public in the next year. International Conference on Advances in ICT for Emerging Regions, ICTer, is an annual event of the UCSC to facilitate the knowledge dissemination of computing research. It is not a research symposium to present the UCSC research and development. After the peer review process, research papers are selected considering the innovation and contribution to the field of computing research. Keynote speakers add a significant value to the conference. The papers presented at the ICTer conference have a now H-index over 19, and it is possible to organize this annual conference because of our volunteers as well as the support given by the local IT industry. UCSC will webcast all the keynote speeches and technical sessions through the YouTube. Hence, ICTer is an open conference to disseminate computing research. With those remarks, I would like to thank Vice Chancellor and all other participants to this ceremony. Finally, I would like to say the research facilities and ICTer conference will further contribute to the development of computing research, and they are public resources of the University of Colombo. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
It was in 1998 that the founding director of the University of Colombo School of Computing, late Vidya Jyoti, Professor V.K. Samaranayaka, initiated International Information Technology Conference, IITC. It was a forum for presentation of ideas and cutting-edge developments by researchers and academics in the field of computing. In 2010,
IITC was renamed and relaunched as the International Conference on Advances in ICT for Emerging Regions. It was intended to obtain a wider international participation and promote research and development in computing in the emerging regions of the world, especially in Asia, Pacific, and Africa. With this relaunch, ICTer was able to attract the international recognition that was due and was able to emphasize the regional importance at this conference. Since the beginning, ICTer has been playing a pivotal role in creating a platform for computer scientists and academics to present their achievements and ideas while being subjected to a strict peer review. ICTer has been able to obtain IEEE technical co-sponsorship and indexing by IEEE Explore due to its maintenance of high quality. UCSC believes ICTer as one of its most significant annual events, considering its ability to promote research and disseminate knowledge in collaboration with other universities and industry locally and regionally. As a result, a significant number of academics worldwide and practitioners in the industry have joined with us by submitting and reviewing research papers, conduct workshops, as well as by contributing to organize the conference. A special issue of the sister journal, ICTer, exposing quality work in an extended format.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your valuable words. ICTer 2021 marks an enormous opportunity for researchers to showcase their novel contributions. Mr. Viraj Vergama and Dr. Tilina Halloluwa, co-chairpersons of ICTer 2021, have put tremendous efforts into making this year's conference possible. Their guidance and cooperation has made us meet physically today and conduct the conference proceedings for the coming 2 days. So to speak a few words on behalf of this exercise, I would like to invite on stage Dr. Tilina Halloluwa, co-chairperson of ICTer 2021.
Right. Hello, everyone. Wish you all a very good evening, and thank you all for being with us today. As the conference co-chairs, Mr. Viraj and I would like to welcome you all to the 21st International Conference on Advances in ICT in the Emerging Regions, which we proudly and fondly call ICTer. This will be held from today till 3rd of December at the University of Colombo School of Computing premises. As we all know, due to the prevailing situations all over the world, last year, for the first time, we were able to conduct this conference successfully as a virtual conference. But this year, we have decided to take a step forward, and we are planning to conduct this massive event as a hybrid event as well. As Dushan earlier mentioned, ICTer 2021 is technically co-sponsored by the IEEE Sri Lankan section and the IEEE Computer Society Sri Lanka chapter. We are really thankful for the continued support they render by throughout these years, and as in the previous years, all presenting full papers will be published in the IEEE Explorer digital library, which surely will give a larger visibility to those accepted papers. Also, longer versions of some of the papers will be invited for publication in the prestigious ICTer journal. Now let me tell you about the conference this year. This year, we received over 220 submissions belonging to 7 different tracks. All the papers went through a rigorous double-blind review process where we were able to compile more than 600 reviews in total. Out of those 224 reviewed papers, only 40 were selected as full papers, and that led to a full paper acceptance rate of just 17%, which shows how competitive and critical this year's review process was. In addition to that, we have accepted 13 papers as posters, which seems to have a good potential to become successful research in future. Even with that 13 papers, the total acceptance rate of the conference was only 23%, which we hope would reflect the quality of the work presented here. This year's conference will feature 6 high-quality keynotes by prominent academic personalities and from the industry. They'll be delivered by first our own Professor Prasad Vimalatna by giving a talk on the role of metaphors in the information visualization. Then Dr. Roshanel Pires from Rochester Institute of Technology, US, will deliver his talk on designing immersive experiences using multisensory approaches. Dr. Chaturanga Manamendra, Director Software Engineering at IFS, will present the industry's perspective by discussing today's students and tomorrow's workforce. Dr. An from University College Dublin will discuss his thoughts on artificial intelligence for Internet of Things. He'll be talking about security and forensics. That will be our 4th keynote. Dr. Daniela Hedwig from Cornell University will be delivering a slightly different and yet very fascinating keynote on elephants and algorithms, how computer science can revolutionize acoustic monitoring. And our final keynote will be done by Emeritus Professor Anton from University Twente, Netherlands, on making smart cities more playable. In addition to that, this year we are adding a new segment to ICTer, where we are having a panel discussion on research in computing. Renowned researchers from both academia and the industry will take part in this discussion, such as Professor Vasantapriyan from University of Sabaragamuwa, Dr. Ruwan Weerasinghe from UCSC, Dr. Sulba Fernando from University of Moratuwa, and Dr. Chaminda Ranasinghe from the Industry Idea Hub. Dr. Manjusri Vikramasinghe will be moderating this discussion. I truly believe this will be an engaging and fascinating discussion that will add color to the conference. As the conference co-chairs, we would like to take this opportunity to thank Madam Vice Chancellor, Professor Chandrika Vijayaratna, for participating as our chief guest, ma'am. We would also like to thank Professor A.P. Hewagamage, the Director UCSC and my supervisor, for his continued support that he kindly offered throughout the years. We would like to extend our sincere thanks for the Publication Committee Chair, Dr. Kasun Karunanayaka, for his support and advices, all the chairs of the Publication Committee, and all the reviewers for their commitment and dedication towards making this review process a success. Also, we would like to express our appreciation to Dr. Samantha Madhararachi and his ADMTC team for providing the required technical assistance to organize this event. We would very much appreciate the conference co-secretaries, Ms. Nimali Vasana, I hope she would somewhere over there, Ms. Amali, Ms. Thirimavithana, and our gratitude is extended to all other conference organizing team members for the immense contribution given throughout the year. Last but not the least, we would like to extend our gratitude to our platinum sponsor, SoftLogic Information Technologies, as well as Cake Engineering, Limark, and Entra for being co-sponsors for this event. On that note, with the help of all these amazing people, we believe that this conference would prove to be a productive and a memorable one for all of you, where you could share and gain knowledge that would further enlighten the future of computing research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. As Dr. Halulu mentioned, I'm pretty sure that we have so much to look forward to in the coming 2 days of the conference, from panel discussions to keynotes to technical paper sessions. Moving on, the Vice Chancellor of University of Colombo, Senior Professor Chandrika N. Vijayaratna, is an alumnus and an academic in reproductive medicine and endocrinology in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, in the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. Senior Professor Vijayaratna is a prodigious leader who guides the university towards success. Her invaluable contribution to University of Colombo has made it shine brightly among the higher education providers in the country and also the globe. On that note, I feel privileged to invite Senior Professor Chandrika Vijayaratna on stage to address the gathering.
Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to you. Ayubowan, respected members of the UCSC, ably led by Director and Deputy Director, Mrs. Samaranayaka, all the keynote speakers who have joined online, except Professor Prasad, who is with us today, as well as all the deans, directors, rector, administrative staff, and particularly the students of the UCSC. Having gone through your building after approximately 10.5 months for the Heva Gamage, all I can say is many congratulations for having achieved so much with so much of challenges that we have had to face. And I'm sure Professor Tusita Tunga, who has joined us online from the AHEAD program, would be aptly very comfortable and very proud of the fact that you have matched all the funding of AHEAD with your own generated funds and have really created a state-of-the-art facility with a very limited space in this premises of the UCSC. So may I at the outset, while congratulating you, also remember, particularly for the next generation, to never forget the visionaries who have made this possible, having paved the way when ICT was probably in its very conceptual stages. So for their vision, the late Professor Samaranayaka and all the others who gave leadership will be justifiably proud of what you have achieved in those beautiful museums, which are so suitable for our students from schools as well as the general public to really understand the basis of computer sciences. I also would like to congratulate you on the multipurpose research laboratory, where you are encouraging self-directed learning, research-based education, as much as inventions and commercialization. And therefore, I really look forward to great collaboration with all our corporate partners and the industry, as much as all the other universities. I'm very proud of the fact that you respect the environment. You are paperless, and you have also helped our entire university landscape to become digitalized more or less overnight due to the COVID-19 crisis. And I think words are not enough to say thank you for being there all the time to give us that support. And I know many other universities have also benefited from your wonderful work. In terms of your research, collaborations, internationalization, I think, again, we cannot forget your level of humility, your scientific inquiry, your being so quality conscious, and also imparting those essential attributes to the next generation, which I'm sure would never forget the UCSC. So in those terms, the fact that you have emerging regions, I was wondering whether you should really change that terminology to emerged regions, because you have truly emerged in the field of ICT. And also the fact that I was noting that this institution would be reaching 20 years next year, but you all are doing your 21st international collaborative partnerships in terms of research conferences. So I'm sure we can reach for the stars, and the sky is the limit. I'm sure you will go further and further. I was very impressed by your multiple tracks. I mean, me being from a very minute zone of this entire field of medicine, I realized that there was so much that artificial intelligence and Internet of Things can do to save and help humanity, which you have so aptly depicted in your titles. So I'm sure that all those who have joined us online would enjoy these proceedings as much as learn and plan ahead and think ahead, where Sri Lanka is truly world-class in terms of computing and sciences. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm truly impressed, and I convey to you the best of my wishes, and I'm sure we can go to greater heights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chancellor, for those very valuable words. Next, we will be moving in to the very first keynote speech of our conference, which will be delivered by Professor Prasad Vimalaratna, Head of the Department of Communication and Media Technologies of UCSC, on the topic, Role of Metaphors in Information Visualization. I would like to invite Professor Vimalaratna on stage for the keynote. I think I should touch. Okay. You want? Yeah. Go to the first slide, right? You know the first slide?
Okay, so now, down. More. The up and down, keyboard. Hi, good evening. So in this talk, I will be talking about the role of metaphors in information visualization, because all of us tend to use metaphors in day-to-day life when you use a mobile phone or a computer, but maybe we didn't consciously think about, what this thing is really, what this really thing called metaphors, and also we'll see how this will help us to reduce the cognitive load and deal with unknown things in a more easier and user-friendlier manner. So during the talk, I'll try to take you through the journey of some of the fundamentals of what is a metaphor, and then we'll go into two-dimensional metaphors, three-dimensional metaphors, and also I'll be talking about some of the projects carried out at UCSC in different domains, like when you want to have large sets of data, can you do visualization in a more intuitive manner in 3 dimensions, and also software source code, like source code visualization. So in other words, software cities would be one of the examples. So with that, so this is the agenda actually. So we'll be looking at briefly the concept of metaphors and also 2D and 3D. And we'll be looking at 2 case studies referring to some of the work done here. Security related case study, software cities, and also source code evolution. When it comes to metaphors, how we can use metaphors to visualize source code evolution. So those are 2 of the case studies. And also I'll refer to some other work done by another university, because metaphors can be used in different contexts, in linguistics, in 2 dimension, in 3 dimension. The last example I just want to quickly look at is controlling an unmanned aerial vehicle using the concept of metaphor. So it can be applied in different domains, although it originally started from linguistic domain. At the end, we'll be concluding with some other active research directions and also with some concluding remarks. So when you talk about 3D metaphoric information visualization, what we try to do is to visualize abstract data and information using something called as spatial metaphors. So here I'm using the word metaphor to define metaphoric information visualization, but don't worry, when it comes to the subsequent slides, we look at what exactly is a metaphor. So what happens actually here is, we try to take the advantage of people's knowledge of real world to convey a concept or a model using your previous knowledge. Say for example, if you take your desktop, Windows desktop, we are used to desktop in day-to-day life. So we have a similar mapping in your Windows desktop. But if you look at the desktop, we are using multiple metaphors there. The mapping from real world. We have a trash can there or recycle bin. In real world, we tend to use unnoted paper into the trash can. And then we have mapped that as a metaphor into the desktop as a recycle bin. So what we do is we put unnoted file into the trash can. So there's a similarity. In linguistics, we talk about analogies and metaphors, but we use the same concept, you will see as we go. Because as I said earlier, metaphors can take variety of forms because it can be linguistic nature, it can be in 3 dimension, you'll find different metaphors, and also you will find metaphors in 2 dimension, and you will see wide variety of metaphors used in the real world. If you look at the hardware domain, we have memory. So memory is again a metaphor used in a different context, because memory can remember things. So if you take hardware memory, it does the same thing. So the concept of metaphor is everywhere when it comes to computing, but here the talk is focusing on graphical or visual metaphors in particular, and we'll see different application domains and how this can make our life easier in different applications. See a similarity, like say if you take the trash can, we can have a picture of an icon of a trash can. So a person who will see the trash can will tend to identify or recognize this would do something similar to the waste bin that we see in the real world. So that's how, so when you invent a metaphor, I will show you some so the person who will invent a metaphor has to think a lot about the cognition and see how people tend to do things in real world. I will show some analogies as we go. So if you just take this example, let's spend a couple of minutes and see, a couple of seconds I would say, and see what does it trying to, it's a metaphor, it's a visual metaphor. What is it trying to convey? If you look at the left, a famous diagram actually, the left-hand side. So what it's trying to say is, so through a metaphor we are conveying, so we have the devices used for cultivation, and we have one-to-one mapping of the fork and the knife. But if you look at the right-hand side, it again gives a very strong message through a metaphor. So it's a shape of a ship, but we can see it looks actually it takes the same form of a spade. So in the left-hand side, use spades, not the ships. So don't import food, try to grow your own food. This is a timely topic, I guess. It's a nice illustration of a visual metaphor. So that's why I said, you invent a metaphor that has to be really, it's not that straightforward, but there are a lot of thinking behind inventing metaphors. This is another nice example I found on the web. I put the URL here. It gives a very strong message about smoking. It's a metaphoric representation or illustration of the the message you want to convey. We can see the smoke around the neck. It gives a strong message. When you smoke, what happens? So likewise, you will find different forms of metaphors. Even if you take a desktop or if you take paintbrush, we have rubber stamp, eraser, pencil, all sort of real world things that are mapped one-to-one. So people who see the interface, a little child who will interact with your interface, doesn't have to read a manual. Probably she or he will figure out, okay, this is for this is for drawing, this is for erasing, etc. So that's the intuition. So when you talk about metaphoric information visualization, we deal with visualizing abstract data and information with the support of visual metaphors, like what you have just seen with the illustrations from 2D actually. So what we do here is we use users' prior experience to help them to interact with the computing system in a natural and intuitive manner. So that's the basic philosophy behind that. So when you take the familiar UI metaphors, I'm just having a UI desktop here. So you can see we have, in a real world, we have various devices or various pencils, pens, clocks, etc. So in your desktop also we can have similar icons which will represent as a metaphoric representation. Here we have a rubber stamp and magic wand and various keyboard, etc. So a person will realize, okay, there's one-to-one mapping. But if you take your media player, we have a fast forward eject button which you are familiar with real world for playing a video. So when you see the media player, he will figure out, okay, this is for pause, this is for eject, etc. So let's look at a couple of examples very quickly. So this is what I was referring to earlier, the two-dimensional metaphor, the trash can, which we are all familiar. So it can be represented in different pictorial representations. So we can just discard the things that we don't want there. And a carousel. Carousel is something that we see in the merry-go-round. When you're kids, we have merry-go-rounds where we spin around the carousel. So same concept has been adopted in the web interfaces. So we have the mobile phone, you can just, slide your photographs. So it's the same carousel. So we call them as a carousel because it's mapped from the concept of a real world carousel. So whether it's a desktop application or a mobile application, we have the same concept there. So if you look at our own website, we have many metaphors there already. We have the menu, which is the restaurant menu, right? So it's a 2D example of a metaphor. And the carousel, we have the slider, the photograph slider is a carousel in the website. So it's a 2D interface where we are able to flip around photographs. So there's a window and it rotates. That's the mapping we are using there. Breadcrumbs. When you browse through the web page, we want to see where we are, the situational awareness. So we are at home initially, then we went to level 2, level 3, level 4, etc. So as you click on the links, we should know where we are. So we are using the concept of breadcrumbs, but actually breadcrumbs come from this fairy tale where this particular character uses a trail to come back home because he can find the way back home. So carousel, like carousel, breadcrumbs, again uses a real world metaphor from a fairy tale. We can see the same concept being used. So in the web pages also we see. So these are all two-dimensional metaphors. So far we have looked at two-dimensional metaphors. But if you take another probably most widely used metaphor is the 2D desktop metaphor. So we have the real world desktop on one side, on left hand side, and we have the Windows desktop or the Linux desktop or Apple desktop on the other side. Just to save time, I think I have quite a bit of slides, so I will do a bit of flipping. So I think with that, you may have an idea like, okay, we encounter a lot of metaphors in day-to-day life, whether we use a web interface or whether we use a mobile phone or whether we use a desktop or whatever. But when it comes from 2D to 3D, we can do similar things in 3D as well. That is the focus of my speech. A three-dimensional interactive data visualization using metaphoric approach. That's the theme of our talk here. So when it comes to three-dimensional metaphors, we have seen in our website a two-dimensional carousel. We can have a three-dimensional version as well, which may not be very intuitive, but that's one example. And another another common metaphor we use in three-dimensional, the pencil. So the tip of the pencil can represent one aspect, height of the pencil can be another aspect, the color of the pencil can represent another metric, or the eraser can represent the color of the eraser, can represent another metric, etc. So you can map real world parameters or matrices in your metaphor based on how you want to apply that in the three-dimensional world. And the other example would be the room metaphor. So when you come to the room, we have walls, pictures, furniture, and various artifacts inside the room. So we can map that into a room metaphor. I will show an example later called Code City, software cities. So when you have a code base of a couple of 100,000 code, we can visualize that as a large city, which will represent code as buildings and land and various aspects there. And another example here, so when you invent metaphors, we always think about the real world artifacts. So we have onion. So if you cut onion and peel it, there's a certain fashion. So you can drill down from inner layer to the outer layer. So we can map that into a context when you want to do information visualization. So when it comes to three-dimensional interactive metaphoric visualization, we have a wide variety of already established concept which can be extended and fused, and you can do much more things than what is already existing. So we have a lot of other examples, tree metaphor. So we have different districts. Each tree can represent different aspects. It can be COVID statistics or election results or whatever. And mushroom, I'll show how we use this metaphor in our case study, which we have used for COVID data visualization. On top of that, there are other metaphors also, lightning metaphor, flower metaphor, likewise the list goes on. So there are lots of real world metaphor that we can use when it comes to three-dimensional information visualization. So if you look at the process of bringing this into three-dimensional interactive visualization, there are certain phases that we have to go through, like mapping of the information, properly visualizing it, and having a mechanism to navigate through the representation. So we can't just bring that as it is. So we have to go through certain phases and then come up with certain methods and mechanisms and models to support so that the user can do something useful with the data, and also managing dynamics. So if you have live video streams or live data you have to update, so we have to look at the dynamics as well. So there are 4 aspects that you will have to look into. So if you look at some of the projects that were done at UCSC in recent times, I can show you how we have adapted and attempted to bring something better than what is existing. To start with, if you look at the contemporary dashboards for COVID-19 visualization, I have the most popular or most widely used dashboards, one on WHO dashboard, and the other one is the Johns Hopkins University dashboard, and this is how they look like. So we have all the information you want, but this is how it's typically presented. You can find any statistics there. I think a lot of statistical analysis is available. Our own dashboard, if you look at today, this is how it would look like. Similar to WHO, Johns Hopkins, this is what we see. We need to find out information or see different patterns and trends and what we have to figure out. We can do, but this is how it's available. So this is today's data. You will see on the web on our own. So the question is, can we do something different so that the user will be able to find what he wants in a more intuitive manner, rather than going through 2-dimensional charts and radial charts and bar charts and etc. So there comes what we want to highlight here. Whole world and look at how the world will look like. And we are using a pencil metaphor to represent each country. So the data about each country is represented by a single pencil. So the height of the pencil will mean something, that the color of the tip will mean another parameter, color of the eraser will mean something else, so likewise. So once you select a country, say Sri Lanka, if the country has district divisions, so we can represent another matter, we can use and when you want to go to city level from district level, we are using that carousel which we see in 2 dimensions, but it's traditional approach, but we have used that in 3-dimensional carousel, which is a one-to-one mapping, obviously from 2D to 3D. And then from city to PHI ward, if you take Colombo city, each PHI has a ward he's looking after. So when you want to drill down onto that level, we are using a different metaphor. We can of course try to use the same metaphor, but that may not be the best. So based on what you want to do, we can analyze and try to see what would be the best metaphor that will suit that particular level of analysis. So for that, we have used the tree metaphor. And then once you drill down to the last level, we go into the traditional radial charts, bar chart, pie charts, etc. So tree-level data, if you look at the district level data, we take the longitude, latitude, altitude. But when you go to the PHI ward, say Colombo 7, the University of Colombo region will be looked after by one PHI. There's something called a PHI ward. So that's the territory there. So from world to country, country to district, district to city, city to PHI ward. That's what we have tried, but we can go into much more different levels based on what you want to do. So this is how it works. This is our attempt. Actually, we can improve, but we found a lot of things through this. So we have the world level. So this green and red means certain things. I will explain that later. So each country will be represented by one pencil. So there's a pencil representation for Sri Lanka. Once you click on that, we can flip into the map view where we will be using mushrooms for each district. So the color of the mushroom, height of the mushroom, and the size of the stalk will mean something. I will explain what this pink and red and yellow means in a moment. But when you want to go into a particular, the next level, so we're using the carousel, but we have seen the website with carousel photo gallery. Photo galleries use carousel, but here we are using a 3-dimensional carousel where we can start with, let's say, male-female distribution, and then recoveries, hospitalizations, whatever. So we can cluster them like what you have seen in the 2-dimensional interface of the Sri Lankan dashboard. So if you want to go to the final level of detail, we can go into the traditional 2D details where you can go into the actual data. But the path from here to there, and you want to roll back, drill down, you can do that in a very interactive manner. So you can, roll back, drill down operations can be done in an interactive manner. So you can try to find what they want. So the idea is to see whether, compared to 2-dimensional interface that is out there, can you do something more intuitive so user can find and get the information they want. For decision makers, all the stakeholders. So similarly, we can go into PHI ward level. You can see a picture. So male-female distribution versus the age group, 1 to 20, 20 to 30, whatever. So we can parameterize them and map them the way we want. So the metaphor of pencil has certain attributes here. The way it's mapped is the height of the pencil is the total cases. So if there's a tall pencil, that means there are a lot of cases reported in that country. And the yellow segment on the top, which is the eraser, will represent the number of patients in the hospital. So that may not be analogous to one-to-one as a pencil, but at a glance, we are able to find out what's going on there. And the green segment, that's the middle part of the pencil, will represent the number of recoveries. So out of the whole lot, how many people will recover? And the red segment, the tip of the pencil, will represent the number of deaths. So the size and the length of these parameters are shown as visual parameters. So we are able to intuitively look at, okay, this is how Sri Lanka look like. So likewise. And here in this case, we used the mushroom, a single mushroom for each district actually. So the stalk length will represent the total number of patients in each district. So that you can see some of them are tall and big, some of them are small, and the cap size are number of recovery. So we have mapped the number of recovers in the cap size, and the color, yellow means there are no deaths, but the intensity of the color become more red and whatever, like a spectrum from pink to whatever. So that will give the intensity of death rate actually. So by looking at that, okay, you can see a particular district look really red, but there are less number of cases. Another district, a lot of cases, but less death. So likewise. So we can feed the data coming from a source like Johns Hopkins or our own database, and then we are able to visualize, interactively navigate, and then find the information we want. So this is how it look like. So from pencil to mushroom, mushroom to carousel, carousel to tree, as I said earlier, and we can represent the legend. And also this is about Anuradhapura district in our data set. So we have done some pre-processing from Sri Lankan data set and connected to, got the data from Johns Hopkins as well. We tried out various cases. So we can see over this about Anuradhapura district, the age, gender, status, and duration. And if you get the status, you can classify the way you want, whether child, adult, elders, etc. And you can go to more low-level granularity based on your requirement. So once you go to the PHI ward level, we use the tree metaphor, deaths versus hospitalization, gender versus age versus state, etc. So leaves of the tree are mapped to the pie chart, so we can drill down from one level to another. So you click on that, you go to next level. If you want to go back, you can revert all back and go forward. So as for the case study, these are some of the things we have mapped actually, because we have non-dimensional data as well as dimensional data. Non-dimensional data include ward name, longitude, latitude kind of numbers. They don't have any dimensionality. But if you take main dimensions, gender, age, status, and gender, of course, male, female, we have to map that with the properties of the metaphor that we are using, whether it's a mushroom or a carousel or tree or whatever. So age, we can again get the distribution from the data set and then cluster them and get the user to drill down and do whatever he wants. So this is how it looks like actually. So you can see here world level to district level to Colombo ward map. So this is a one instance of the mapping actually. So that was actually the Bambalapiti award from the Google map, and so can drill down and see the deaths versus hospitalization at given point in time. So we can start with one parameter and then drill down and see through the path you want to investigate. So once you go to the lowest level, of course, we have this is from a popular tool actually. We have radial charts, pie charts, bar graph, all sort of charting we can do. So at the last level, we can use the standard charts that are out there for what you want to analyze. But in our case, we have used simple bar charts and pie charts, etc. in the last level. So this is a quick overview of the actual video. Let me take the folder and try to play that video. Yeah, hopefully it should run. Yeah. It's a quick snapshot of what I just mentioned. So you have total cases, total deaths, and total recoveries. You can select what you want to visualize. Once you do that, you can start drilling down. So it's a prototype built
for the purpose of doing an evaluation. So for Sri Lanka, we want to go to country level. So from world level to country level, we have gone to Sri Lanka, and we can see there's a mushroom representing each district, Polonnaruwa, Kurunegala, Kandy, etc. And then we have the color represent, and there's a higher death rate, we have more red there. So once you click on the mushroom, we get different subdimensions, gender, status, age, etc. And then the periods, the duration of. So we can interactively explore. Once you go to the lowest level, of course, we can use all these radial charts, bar charts, etc., and then get the information you want in an interactive manner. So you can go forward and go backward. So this is a simple example of attempt to bring some of the metaphoric concept into a visualization of a data set. So this can be applied to finance data, weather data, anything. So we use a data set as a case study just to experiment and see the level of intuition, etc. The next example would be more interesting, I would guess, because when you say software, we are used to text, piece of text when you say software, but can we visualize them as a city, software city? So that's an interesting metaphor, which is established, but we have gone beyond the standard concept of city metaphor. I'll show you how we have done that, because we know the time we spent in reading the code versus writing the code is like 1 to 10. So we spend more time in reading the code, understanding others' code, fixing bugs and improving things, etc. So there's a need to visualize and understand the code better. So the question here is, can we consider software cities? Because we have a desktop, we had a carousel, we had a breadcrumb. So likewise, can we software city? So that's the question here. Yes, it's possible. The metaphor code city allows us to visualize software as cities. So we have class level, package level information, and the matrices, lines of code will represent the height of the building, right? So source code will look like what we have on the left-hand side, it's all text. But when you get that into the three-dimensional environment, is a city, districts, and buildings, etc. Metaphor, but it can just visualize, that's all it can do. But we want to experiment in a next level in a security related case study and also code evolution. So if you look at the basic code metaphor, so we have the concept of city, and city has buildings and districts. So we have packages and classes. So we have classes here, and then we have packages, and buildings will represent and matrices can be mapped the way we want to visualize different aspects. So if you say height of a building will represent the number of lines of code for that particular chunk. So a taller building means there are a lot of code there. So likewise. So classes are represented as buildings in the city, while the packages are represented as districts that they will sit there. So so we can see here the real world city versus the code city. Now what we have done here is we wanted to visualize security vulnerabilities in the code, because when you have a large code base, finding security vulnerabilities is a difficult thing. So what we done is we scan the security vulnerabilities, not everything, take the top 10, because if you look at the site like OWASP, we know there are top 10 vulnerabilities as of today that the list get updated. So we want to narrow down the scope by listing down the top 10 or top 5, and we can narrow down that, because otherwise if you have hundreds of them, then it doesn't make sense. So you get the most worst ones and then try to visualize how. So we can see here, we get the source code, the code city, and then we fused that with security vulnerabilities, and we were able to visualize the vulnerabilities in different part of the code. So you can see there's a big code, but there are a lot of vulnerabilities from top 10. So once you go into a building, we went further from there. We brought the room metaphor. We know if you take a room, we have different artifacts there. So inside the walls of the building, so if you go inside the building, in the wall, it can represent different aspects of security vulnerabilities. And also on the floor, like our chairs and tables, we can put different, like a bar chart, 3-dimensional bar chart. Of course, we can do a lot of experiments here and bring more and more intuition. So if you think about this versus running a tool like SonarCube and getting a lot of hundreds of vulnerabilities and a large code base, it will be very difficult. So open source code base was tried out with this, and there were things we could learn from there. And also there's another attempt by one of the students to look at the source code evolution, because we have different versions of software. Can we visualize different versions? So I have analogy here. Eiffel Tower being built at different levels, different versions of that. So similar things can be done. Time traveling back in time and forward can be visualized. So that's another example of using a metaphor. City software visualization so visualize software as cities basically, but we can go beyond that, not the basic metaphor. This is another project from another research group. It's about the code ownership of contributions at different developers. So we have a team of 10 people developing the code. We can visualize the contribution made by different developers using different color segments. So if you take a particular building block, we can see large contribution by X, smaller contribution by Y, etc. So this again can be useful, because if they are in textual form, getting this information is very difficult. But if you get into 3D, with intuition, you can see it will help the person who want to analyze this information to reach that in a more intuitive and efficient manner. I wanted to show something different, because we said we started linguistics and then we went to 2D, then we talked about 3D, and then we went to different contexts. Now let's look at some example from another research group doing something really interesting. I found, I thought it would be interesting to see. Let me play that video as well. It will take like a few minutes, but I think it's worth looking at. So you can see he's using the mobile phone gesture, but as a metaphor to control the UAV. So he's taking the first person view of the UAV and controlling with the gestures. Examples that will help us to understand. So once you combine or fuse such metaphors, the user will be able to view them, navigate them, explore them, 3D can be a very useful method to approach. There are many challenges here. Actually, this is a very active research area, so there are different directions, but I listed a couple of for you the gravity of certain things people work on if you have to push the boundaries further. So one challenging part would be mapping the concept to the data and information in an intuitive manner. Because if you do the wrong mapping, what would happen? So there are some concept I'm familiar in the real world, and the designer has mapped that in a wrong manner, so that can easily confuse the user. So that's going to be worse than what we can do in the ordinary manner, right? So one of the challenges is to think about the intuition and how people think actually. So I think I can take something beyond this discussion. Has never seen the door handle like that tend to pull it. But when you have a knob type door handle, the person who has never seen or experienced that tend to rotate it. So that's intuition. So as a designer, the shape of the handle can be done in such a way that they don't tend to. But imagine that as a designer, you don't think about the intuition, you design some, really nice looking door handle, and people will break the door actually, because they tend to do the other way around. I'm sure you have experience in day-to-day life. There are some, some mapping that is done in an incorrect manner. So as a user, there's a usability issue. Same usability issues comes into software interfaces as well. So one of the challenges is to come up with correct mapping, and intuitive mapping is one area. And the other thing is whether we want to drill down and roll up type of operations cannot be done sometimes with a single metaphor. So you have to work with multiple metaphors. So how to fuse them? And also the underlying driving mechanism. So in our example, we done it, so we can roll back and down things. But how do we get that dynamic behavior? And also the fusion of metaphors. What metaphor has to be selected? How we are going to the metaphoric information with for real-time visualization of dynamic and complex data. When I say dynamic and complex data, we talk about data in motion, streaming data that will enable decisions within fractions of a second. And data at scale, petabytes or exabyte of large data, again, is a challenging area. And data in many forms. We talk about data lakes, for example, structured, unstructured, text, multimedia as one pool of data. So when it comes to deal with them, that's going to be very tough. And also better comprehension and analysis of large volumes of dynamic and abstract data, again, going with that, it's going to be challenging. So likewise, there are a long list of challenges that yet to be pushed as boundaries. These are some of the areas that I want to just highlight when you look at the state of the art. So as a summary, because we started with the metaphor, we can say metaphor is by definition is inexact. So it's a great term. Say metaphor, we know it's a mapping, it's like analogy. So if you look at the fork and the knife example, we know by looking at what it is, right? So it's trying to convey the message. If you take that smoke and the man with the cigarette, again, it gives a strong message, very clear, very intuitive. But how we do that is something very interesting we can see here. So metaphor is interpreted as contextually at many levels, from a single individual to a large culture, everything in between. Say, for example, as Sri Lankans, we may be familiar with one concept, but if you bring that concept into a web interface, in a different culture, they will have a different meaning, because we know color has a meaning. Red in China has one meaning for red, and Japan has another meaning for red. If you take white, in one part of the world is death and mourning, and other part of the world is, purity and, different meaning. So if you look at the web interfaces, color has a meaning in different cultures. So likewise, metaphor, again, we can come into universal metaphors. Like if you look at the shopping trolley we see in e-commerce systems. In initial days, if you look at 2D metaphors, they used to have this basket for British e-commerce sites, because in Britain it's more widely used at the time, not now, the shopping basket. But whereas trolley was an American thing, but today trolley is universal, so everybody knows shopping trolley is for putting stuff in trolley and then going to the checkout and buy that. So like even waste can, in initial days of interface, in Thailand kind of country, they use more cane, so they use the icon of cane woven basket for the trash can, whereas others use plastic looking. So people will figure out, because we are familiar in our culture, this is the trash can. So likewise, with the web, today most things are universal. So there are a lot of things. So likewise, there are some points I wanted to highlight in conclusion. Whether it's 2D or whether it's 3D, there are certain things that are common actually. So in conclusion, so it's an active research area in large data visualization. With big data, the metaphoric approach to interactive data visualization can do a lot. So there are a lot of things that can be done when it comes to large data visualization. So we have looked at 2 case studies, one software as it is, other one is pulling out data, the pandemic data. So data can be anything, it can be weather data, it can be education related data or financial data. Getting to support the data analyst in their tasks and communication of insights to the naive end users is something that is necessary when you deal with large data sets. So creating intuitive interfaces is still a challenge and yet to be addressed. There are many things when it comes to 3D as well. With that, I will conclude my presentations and we can have Q&A or discussion. If you have any questions, Shani, how do you take questions? Yeah, okay. Any questions or anything, any feedback or questions? It looks a bit quiet. Yes. That not necessarily. Yeah. the governing mechanism, like how we're going to allow them to drill down and roll up, like what you have done here with the state machine, and also how to extract them. Like in our case, we use the SonarCube tool to extract them, and then we looked at OWASP top 10 list because we can't get everything. If you get everything, it's going to be cluttered. There's no use. So we had to filter out something tangible and bring that based on your requirement. So top 10, of course, is important. So that was shortlisted, and then we brought it so we can clearly see that. But of course, if you want to go to different levels of abstraction, well, we could have had another metaphor. You can drill down from different levels of abstraction. Okay, top 10 coming first. You want to go to next 10. Oh, so it can be horizontal or other way around. Did I answer your question? Yeah, okay, go on. Good question. We can benchmark with the 2 dimensions. So, for example, it's a usability evaluation we are talking about, because there's no profiling kind of thing we can do. So it's all about usability evaluation. So we give a case study, okay, pandemic data, you want to find something, death rate in Colombo district, this PHI vote 52. This is what is available. Now try this out and try to find out. So we can define the normal protocol, like what you do with the UI metaphor. So we can do experimental protocol is same as UI usability evaluation. So we can benchmark. One method is that we can benchmark with the existing method with what we have done, and you can identify the limitations. Sometimes you tend to see, okay, he is getting confused at one point. So there's something wrong with the metaphor or mapping at least. So it's like the door I explained, you can have a door handle, people can pull, but it doesn't pull, it's supposed to push. Psychology of everyday things will apply here as well. Okay, any other questions?
Sir, you have discussed that color
Kasun, yes,
has...
Kasun.
I'm here.
I can hear you, yes.
Color has different meaning in different countries. For
Yes.
example, in Chinese culture, red is considered as a good color.
Yeah.
So let's assume that we are developing a website that need to be used in multiple countries, different cultures. So what is your recommendation on how we can localize?
Good question, Kasun. In the early days of developing web, for example, corporate websites, I don't want to quote names here, but let's say computer company X, they had Japanese version, Singaporean version, European version. You have to map the metaphors. I can tell you a nice example, a particular gesture in the icon. In one culture, that's a rude gesture. In the other culture, that's quite fine. If you take some of the vehicles, you see, I have one particular example, I don't quote here the exact detail, but the name of the vehicle, if you look at, okay, European vehicle has a different name, the Japanese same vehicle has a different name. Because in Europe, that particular word for some reason is a rude word or whatever, so they can't use that name in the vehicle, so it was named, I'm talking about 1980s vehicle, a Jeep actually. So likewise, Kasun, I think what happened in initial days is to have different versions. So if you say .jp, it comes with a different look and feel. That is one thing we can do. Because getting universal e-commerce, yes, we are able to do it today, because if you go to eBay and all, it's all one world with the internet. But if you have, I can take one more example, Kasun, 2 more examples if time permits, Tushani. Yeah, one is there's this e-commerce site selling wine, and they were selling wine all over the world, and then Japanese customer tend to ask the question, where's the other bottle? They were query, customer query is coming, where's my other bottle? Then they investigated, and then they found in the Japanese culture, when they package things, they don't leave empty cartons. So if you buy 2 bottles, let's say 3 bottles, you have a package for 3 bottles. I think Heva can correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been there for many years, right? So that particular example in e-commerce. But in the other Europe, for example, they have a standard for 4 carton this thing. So if you buy 3 bottles, you put and then send the whole thing. But in one country, that is not normal. Same thing with baby canned food. That's a very interesting case study. They were selling, canned baby food, this hens type, not hens, but I'm telling you, with canned baby food. They were selling canned baby food through an e-commerce site. And in one part of the world, I don't want to quote the country, but no sales basically. They tried out and no sales, but they realized in their culture, in the food containers, they have a picture of the food. But that particular company, baby canned food, they have a picture of baby, so they don't want that. Not that they misunderstood, but they don't, they are not receptive to that. Hasan? So we had to design, whether it's a UA metaphor or a food container or whatever. So cultural awareness, I would say it's different versions, Hasan.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, whether it's a vehicle example, I'll tell you after the talk, the name of the vehicle and what happened. Even web icons, I have seen some example that just says road in one country, so we can't have icon for that. So we have to be, have to have different versions.
Thank you for the detailed answer.
Okay. Hope I answered you, Kasun.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So if there are no questions, thank you very much. I hope you learned something.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that informative and valuable and also interesting, I would say, keynote. It was quite interesting to listen to how we can use metaphors in everyday things and also to help out with huge disasters like the pandemic. So with that, we'll be moving into the final segment of the ceremony today, the vote of thanks. So this ceremony and the conference was made possible by the enormous efforts put in by the staff of UCSC and all of the other well-wishers. So it's time that we extend our sincere thanks to all of them. So for this, I would like to invite the Deputy Director of UCSC, Dr. Ajanta Atukoro, on stage to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I would like to extend the vote of thanks on behalf of the UCSC to everyone who contributed to. There are several achievements today we went through. First, opening the research laboratory, and then renovation of the ground floor computer lab, the museum stage 2, the new reception in the ground floor, as well as inaugurating the ICTer 2021. So I'm grateful to our chief guest, Madam Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor Chandrika and Vijayaratna, for gracing this occasion despite her busy schedule. Special thanks goes to our special guests, all deans, including Dean of Medicine, who is here with us, and all the others who joined online, and the directors of the other institutes of the University of Colombo, members of the Board of Management of the University of Colombo School of Computing, Mr. K.S. Edward, the Registrar of the University of Colombo, Ms. all the administrative staff members of UCSC, Dr. Harsha Atrupana, Lead Economist, AHEAD Project, Professor Tushita Abe, who was online, the Lead Expert Research, AHEAD Mr. Upul Sen, Project. Okay. Ms. Samaranayak, Ms. Nayana Samaranayak, Mr. Keith Gunatilaka, Mrs. H. Lenage, who is with us today. Our architects and the designing team, architect Ms. Chana Samarasinghe, designer Ms. Malsha Mendis, Professor Angika Halwatura, the Department of Civil Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University of Maratua, throughout this team of Samira Construction, Mr. Viraj, and the team of the Kalhara Builders Construction Private Limited. Again, the division of Mr. Lasantha of Modern Interiors. Finally, my thanks are directed to all the academic, administrative, academic support and non-academic staff of the UCSC who contributed enormously to successfully complete these several tasks that I mentioned earlier. Before I conclude, I would like to thank the director of the UCSC, the head of the postgraduate studies, Professor Prasad Vimalaratna, the coordinator, head project and the ICE project, Deputy Bursa and the Assistant Bursa Procurement of UCSC, Works Engineer and the staff of the Maintenance Division of the UCSC, the SAR of the PRP, Postgraduate and Research Projects, and the staff of the Postgraduate Division of the UCSC for their valuable contribution to the success of these projects. So once again, I would like to thank everyone for all the dedication and the hard work put in to all these events and make it success and proud of UCSC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the inauguration ceremony today. Coming 2 days will be quite enjoyable and informative for us participating at the conference, ICTer 2021. I wish you well and hope to see you all in the physical conference next year. So during the next hour, we can mix and mingle with each other at the reception area at the 5th floor. Stay safe and have a pleasant evening.